Talking to some of the best names in contemporary Christian music. This is the Hope FM Artist Interview.
And welcome to this week's episode of the Artist Interview, a podcast from Hope FM, also on our partner stations worldwide. I'm your host, Gordon T, and it's my absolute pleasure to introduce and bring to the UK and beyond artists from the world of contemporary Christian music. And this week, we've got none other than Mr. Dan Bremnes with us. And I've got to say, you will recognise his music, I'm absolutely sure. He's got some new music coming out next year as well. No, this year is 2022 already. Time is flying by. But this first track, let's listen to right now. You will know it. It's Up Again.
Ooh, keep holding on, it's not the end. Ooh, you gotta get up again. Get up again. You can get up again. You can get up again.
And that was Up Again by Dan Bremnes. Hey Dan, how you doing?
Great, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you, sir. Very well indeed. So thanks for coming to join us on the Artist Interview. Now, we're fairly familiar with tracks like Up Again. It did well on our charts here. And I think people have been enjoying your music. I certainly have been listening to it quite a bit just lately, and I love it. So it's going to be a real treat to get to listen to some of it right now. But before we do that, would you be happy maybe to share a little bit about your Jesus story and how Jesus fits into your life, and then how music all came about as well?
Sure, yeah. I was grew up in a small town in Canada, and my dad was a pastor, and we were sort of really far away from everything, musical and radio, everything. It was kind of a weird thing that I ended up doing Christian music and moving to Nashville, because I definitely didn't start there. Growing up in a Christian home, knew a lot about God, Jesus, like dad being a pastor, always surrounded with it, it was all around me. But at one point, it's incredible how something can be kind of all around you, but not in you sort of thing. And I did the usual, accept Jesus at every altar call just for fire insurance sort of thing, but it never really clicked inside. For me, it was when I was around 18 years old, and I had an idea of where I wanted to go with my life, what I wanted to do. And I just felt a different invitation, and I knew it was God. And I remember just like being in times of I'd turn on worship music, like Delirious. That was my band back then. And I felt this pulling to another world, to another story. And I was dating a girl at the time, and I had ideas about what I wanted to do with my life at the time. And I felt like I had to give that up. It was very weird. And it felt like I was, trading. It felt like a bad trade at the moment. I was like, this is what I want to be. This is who I want to marry. But it was like this pull. And it's sort of like, that's when I accepted that invitation, I accepted Jesus, was what it was. There's a story of when Jesus basically is rounding up his posse, and he finds people fishing on the beach with their family, or doing what their life was supposed to be or look like. And he just came along and said, "Hey, you want to follow me?" Boom. Sure. Drop everything, follow Jesus. It was sort of like that. And for me, that's what made it real. It was this actual real step, this real move in a different direction. And that's how I really feel like my relationship with God actually became real and started. And shortly after that, I ended up going and doing a mission with YWAM, and in Australia.
Wow, cool.
Hanging out with some ex-UK convicts there in Australia. And loved it. And then that was sort of like another just big change. And that's sort of when I thought, I can do music, but I'm going to do it with a different purpose, like just a different direction. And it sort of set me on a trajectory which led me here. But it all came back to that moment of deciding exactly what it meant to follow Jesus.
Yeah, well, YWAM, now obviously on the radio, people couldn't see, but I gave a little cheer at that moment because my wife and I, many years ago, spent time with YWAM. So Youth with a Mission,
nice.
An amazing organisation, so and a great place to get transformed as well. So so you go there because you think it might bless other people, but I think the biggest blessing is the change it does within you. So, so I guess you did discipleship training school, is that right?
Did, yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty cool. So you came away thinking, I'll do music, but with a different purpose in it all. With I guess Jesus right at the center of your ambitions. So you finished in Australia. So when you're in Australia, did you spend the whole time in Australia, or did you go abroad for the outreach phase, or what happened?
We went to Indonesia and Japan for our outreach.
Okay.
So got to see a little bit more of the world.
Yeah.
Fell in love with traveling a little more. It was great.
Wow. Okay, that's an exciting thing. I think particularly Dan and I giving a little plug. Maybe if you've got a person who's on a gap year or thinking about what they do after uni or before uni, YWAM, we'd like to give it a thumbs up. I think because it's great. Okay, but becoming a musician is, to be honest with you, not a very easy road, is my guess, because many people think they want to be musicians. I'd like to be a musician, but I ended up being a radio presenter instead. But in fairness, that's probably a wise thing because I actually totally can't play any instruments. So what instruments do you play, Dan?
Well, I started on the drums. I never thought I'd be a singer, but I learned guitar. My youth pastor taught me guitar when I was about 16, 17. And then I started to sing, never thought I could sing. And it's just the sort of thing that you keep doing, you get better at. So a lot of people ask me about the journey, and a lot of people are aspiring to do music. And I always tell them, you just have to do it because you don't know unless you do it. And it's the sort of thing that you get better at every time, you know? So yeah, that mainly now I just play guitar and sometimes piano and sing from stage.
Okay. So when you got back from Australia to Canada, how old were you at that point? Was that 19, 18, something like that?
I would have been, 19. Mm-hmm.
So, and you said, right, I'm going to be a musician, but what practically did you do? Obviously you're saying just keep singing, keep doing it. But how do you actually release an album? How did you go about that process?
I went to Vancouver, like the nearest big city. And I spent all my savings and recorded 10 songs of my original songs. And I self-produced it, played my own drums, did a lot of it. As much of it I could do myself to save money. And then ordered 1,000 CDs. They showed up on my door and I was like, well, I guess I got to get rid of these. So that the next step kind of forced me into touring. So I just started calling up churches and just saying, hey, can I come and share my music? And they said, sure. And that turned into about a 5-year journey of just touring around Canada, and went back to Australia, went to New Zealand, did some music in Europe. And then at one point it turned into a record deal, and that's when we decided to move to Nashville.
Okay, so you say we, so I'm obviously missing out on a vital piece of information then. So who's the we in your life?
Well, at the time I'm still married, but I was married, but we had just had our first kid, Eli, who was 0 years old at the time when we moved here. He was about 2 months, and we picked everything up and moved to Nashville. Now we have another daughter, Eden. So there's 4 of us all together now.
And your wife's name is?
Brittany.
I have seen a picture of your wife actually on Twitter, where you said my wife looks like a model or something like that. And I actually thought, yeah, she does actually. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, so everyone up sticks and moved with you to Nashville. So big change really for the whole family.
Yeah.
Did you like Nashville compared to being in Vancouver or Canada?
I love Nashville. We're still here. Nashville feels like home to us. You know, British Columbia, Vancouver is obviously very beautiful. But we do love the weather here, and we love being a part of the music community here. It's sort of like back home. There's not really a space for that. So we can all be weird together here.
Yeah, okay. So loving the outcome, Jody and Chris. So they're Canadians. They're in Nashville. They must be friends of yours.
I was just talking to Jody about an hour or so ago. Yeah, they're good friends of ours. We love them.
Oh, yeah. Well, we have them on the station before, and I thought they were fabulous. So yeah, that's cool. In fact, I was pretty confident you'd like them, because I did notice that on your acoustic album, they've been involved
That's
in
great.
that, hadn't they, on one of the tracks? So which is lovely. So in fact, let's talk about your albums briefly. So you put out your first album. You did 1,000. I went around churches to sell them.
Mm-hmm.
Did you manage to sell all 1,000?
I did, yeah, and a few more.
And a few more. So obviously it went quite well. And then off the back of it going well, you moved to Nashville and you produced another album, which is, I guess, Where the Light Is.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which also I thought was quite a good album, by the way.
Thank you.
So of the songs that you produced in those first two albums, which is your favorite track?
I like Where the Light Is. I also sing a lot, another one off of that record called Over. And it just talks about regret, which is something that everybody deals with. So I like the message in that song and how it speaks to that. So yeah, I'm trying to think of what else is on there. Beautiful. I like Beautiful. That was one of the first songs I ever wrote. So it feels kind of special.
Yeah, and Beautiful obviously had a huge streaming success with a number of listeners to that. It was very well received, wasn't it?
Yeah, it did okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it did okay. I think it had millions of streams. So
there you go.
I think more than okay. It was a great success, which is nice. So but you didn't your original record deal that got canned, didn't it? That was with Capitol.
Yep, it just didn't go past one record. So I was kind of like, well, what do we do now? So we actually moved back to Canada, had our daughter in Vancouver, and I worked on another record, which is called Wherever I Go. And basically finished it on my own again in Canada and came back to Nashville and signed a new record deal, which felt like a miracle to me in the moment. I didn't think that would happen again. And Wherever I Go ended up being the album that sort of really worked for me, even in comparison to Where the Light Is. So I had a lot of fun with that. And being a drummer, I sort of brought back in that rhythm. I love playing like rhythm and blues and like funky music and like funk music and things like that. So it sort of like brought it all together into something that I was like, oh, this is actually the music I really like making. Not that I didn't like the previous album. I just had a little more fun on this one.
And I'd like to speak into a bit more fun because I tell you what, there's lots of little flourishes that you put in. There's always, at one point, it's like almost the sound of a cuckoo. It's not a cuckoo, but it goes, ooh, and I think it's, and there's always little bits, like sometimes you just hang for a moment and put on an extra something on the end of things. It's like almost a bit of punctuation on the end. I really enjoy that. So I was like, there's a lot of fun listening to your music. I tell you what, if you want to be cheered up, I would recommend listeners go and listen to the whole of the Wherever I Go album from start to finish, because it's a great piece of work. So musically, just excellent. So anyway, okay, so you've had that album. That's really done well. You enjoyed making it. And we got another track. Before we talk about the future, let's talk about this next track that we can play. So this is called Wouldn't Change a Thing. It came out December 2021. Mm-hmm. Tell us about the track. Why did you write it? Who's it aimed at? And then we'll look forward to listening to it.
Fun story. I actually wrote it with somebody in the UK, a guy named Jimmy James. And so that's kind of fun. And
that is cool.
And did it over Zoom during quarantine. And really, really like Jimmy. And so there's a little piece of the UK there. And he and I wrote this song just about this idea of, again, this is about regret. It's really easy for us to look back, isn't it? And just say, man, if only I wouldn't have done this, wouldn't have said that, wouldn't have gone there, wouldn't have eaten that, wouldn't have thought that, our whole life can be filled with regret. And this song is really the idea of looking back and saying like, you know what, I probably would change it, but it's kind of tongue in cheek saying like, I can't, so I won't. I'll learn from it and I'll grow. And there's grace, and, I always say like, regret has to do with the past. Anxiety has to do with the future, but neither of them have any business being present. This moment that we have right now is all that we're going to ever have. So we waste it by worrying about the future and regretting the past, especially with the truth that we know that we're forgiven, we're loved, we're taken care of. We don't have to do that.
I wouldn't change a thing, no, not a thing. 'Cause some things were and some weren't meant to be. And that's just the way things go until it's history nobody knows. What could have been different, but I'm in, and I wouldn't change a thing to.
And that was Wouldn't Change a Thing by Dan Bremnes. And I'm very pleased to say that Dan is still with us here for the Artist Interview, a podcast from Hope FM. Dan, that's a beautiful track. And the introduction actually was so helpful for us thinking about, we can't change the past, and we can trust God for the future as well. It would be great at this point you were happy to pray for listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. God, I just pray for everybody listening right now that you would give us all the strength to focus on you. It's so hard sometimes, when we have our regrets and our failures in our past. Always we can think of it, and I know that you're calling us into this moment to trust you and to love you, and we do. Give us the strength to keep looking to you. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And if you're listening, I'm thinking, who's this Jesus that Dan and Gordon are talking about? Just want to encourage you to find a local church. You can go online, if you're in the UK, to www.findachurch.co.uk. And if you're listening elsewhere in the world, contact the station you're listening to us on and ask them, can they recommend a good church? Because there are many churches that would love you to find more of God's amazing love. Right, Dan, it's 2022, just started, January 2022. What do you think this year has for you?
Of any year, I have no idea. My life has been turned upside down like a lot of artists. Haven't really been touring for the last year and a half, sort of doing whatever we can to make sure we keep food on the table and that sort of thing, and busy with the kids. And there's a lot of question marks. So this is one of those moments where I have to eat my own words, and trust God for the future, because it seems very unclear. But there's been some great moments so far, and I've really enjoyed the ride. And there's something about not exactly knowing the future that it can freak you out, but it can also be exciting because anything could happen.
That's reasonably fair. One of the things I'm hoping might happen is there going to be a new album this year?
Oh, of course, yeah, that's for sure.
That's good
I'm
news.
coming up with a brand new song at the end of this month. Or beginning of February, I should say, and then another new one March, another in April, and then the record will come out in June. So got lots of fun new music coming for sure.
Talking of fun new music, one of the things with your music is it's not super overtly in your face Christian. It's not got Jesus every second line or anything like that. I could give the album to my non-Christian friends, and I think that a lot of them would really enjoy it. So who would you say is your target audience?
So what you're talking about is on purpose. There are some songs that are very blatant and very strictly like, okay, wow, this is a Christian song. But I found myself in my travels on an airfare or catching up with friends I graduated with that are not church people, or just new people I meet on the street. Hey, what do you do? I do music. I was thinking about them a lot when I was making some of this new music. And I thought, anybody should be able to pick up my music and listen to it and enjoy it. But then there's some little sprinkles in there that might make them ask like, I wonder what's going on, what he's talking about. So rather than like being blunt and right in people's faces, I wanted something for just everybody. And if they started digging in and listening to the record a bit more, listening to more of my music, they'd find out pretty quickly what's going on. So that's sort of the goal, is just to have something for everybody, positive, encouraging music, stuff that speaks to the soul, speaks to the heart, and leaves room, I think, for the Holy Spirit to speak himself.
Yeah, that I've got to say, I think you got a big tick. Success, you're managing that. If that's your aim, I've got to say, I've enjoyed the tracks listened to, but I'm really looking forward to the new record. How many tracks will be on the album? I
think 10, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 10.
Okay. Yeah. Will there be a hidden track?
Not yet.
No, I don't.
That's always fun.
No one seems to do hidden tracks anymore, do they?
Hard to hide them without a CD now.
Yeah,
you can't sneak it on there.
You'd have to just have a very, very long last track on the Spotify list. Yeah, okay. So where do people connect with you? If people want to actually find out about you, where do you hang out most?
Mostly like Instagram and that sort of thing. Facebook sometimes. I would say touring, but I'm not touring a lot right now, so I'm still on pause a little bit. You
mentioned earlier that you'd been in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get as far as the UK?
I did. I visited, but I didn't play music in the UK, unfortunately. I did some writing there, but I didn't get to play. So, maybe one day.
Maybe that needs to be corrected. Yeah, that's an omission in your life, clearly. So
Okay.
where did you play in Europe?
I played in Germany. I played in, I always forget the names of these countries. Germany, Sweden, Norway. I should know Norway because my family's all from Norway. And Denmark. And there's another country. I just always forget the name of it, and I'm ashamed that I do. But I know I'm not going to remember.
Somewhere else with a cool name. That explains because your dad's name, was it Norville? Have I pronounced that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, I wonder where that name's from. But Norway does make some sense. So when did they move from Norway to Canada then?
It was shortly after my dad was born.
Okay. So a while back. Yeah. Okay.
We have lots of great relatives in Norway, and when I was over there playing music, we got to meet them, and it was really special.
That explains why you went to those sorts of countries rather than prioritizing playing in the UK. But you can sort that out next time. That's fine. So this guy who you mentioned in the UK. So what was his name again?
Jimmy James.
Yeah. So how do you know Jimmy James then?
It was just through some mutual friends, and in my record label, someone there knew of him and said, "Hey, do you want to write with this guy?" And I was like, "Sure." And then we just hit it off and really enjoyed his company.
Worked out well. That's good. If I could ask just a little bit about your journey with God for a moment, is there a time when you've really seen God step in with an answer to prayer?
Yeah, I mean, so much. Over this past year in 2020, when everything was sort of shut down, we had just bought a house, which is a big step of faith, and it was a big fixer-upper. And I ended up having to do most of the work. It took me about 8-9 months. And I would say in those months, I discovered the hand of God in a big way. It's almost like miracle after miracle to get here. And now here I am. I'm sitting in the house, and it's done. And it's been a big part of our story. And just seeing God's faithfulness, like on those days that I just didn't have time to pray. I just had to work. It was crazy. Deadlines and surprises, and just feeling like I didn't deserve that sort of help or grace, but it was there, and it was great.
That is very cool. I've got to say, also, I'm very impressed. You're not only a musician, but also you know how to do up a house. So I would have no idea. So that's multi-talented, sir.
Talking to some of the best names in contemporary Christian music. This is the Hope FM Artist Interview.
In the Bible, obviously you've been brought up with the Bible all around you, I should think. Who's your favorite Bible character and why?
That's a great question. If I was to narrow it down to one, I love the story of Joseph, because Joseph had big dreams. I feel like I have big dreams. I think we all have big dreams. He was 17 and he saw the future, right? He had this vision of where he's going to be. He's going to be the king, his brothers are going to bow down to him. And I feel like that's a lot like us. We have this vision or this idea, this dream that we feel like God's put in our life. And we actually think it's going to happen tomorrow, just like Joseph did. The crazy thing about Joseph is it went the other way. Instead of becoming like a king, pretty much the next day he was in prison, sold. He was sold by his own family. And I forget the amount of years, it was at least 15 years he spent time constantly, like felt like he got there and then pushed right back down. And at his darkest hour in the darkest place of his life in prison, God's will came about, and then it all happened at once. And I love that story because so many of us, we have this vision for our life and how we think it's going to go, and then it usually goes the other way. And that's when we have to trust that it's actually not our story. It's God's story. And at the end, when Joseph's brothers finally did come to him and bow down, and he was the prince, the king, everything that he saw, he finally saw it at that point. And he said, now I understand. This is all about saving a nation. This wasn't about me. This wasn't about me looking awesome or being the man and having my brothers bow down to me. This was much bigger. And sometimes it takes us years to grow into the plans that God has for us, but we're not going to miss it. It's going to happen because it's his idea, and it's not about us. It's about so many other bigger things, but we get to be a part. So that's why I love Joseph.
Yeah, and clearly a good example of things going quite badly wrong, but God's plan playing out through it. When you've been touring and on the road, I'm guessing that not everything always goes smoothly. Do you ever have one of those stories where things didn't go to plan, but God stepped in?
It's a good question. I mean, I feel like, every tour, everything is like that, and you just have to kind of roll with it. I can't think of anything in particular off the top of my head, but I've been in a few bus accidents on the road, and I'm just thankful that nothing really bad happened, so just thankful for God's protection and care, and it's always nice to be able to come back home alive.
Yes, that definitely is probably one of the things that your wife has high on the list for your touring, to come back safe and sound, especially for your kids as well. And we've got another track to play from you. So this track's called "Run Away with Me," which I think, all right, you co-wrote that with Mike Donahue. So previously from 10th Avenue North.
Yep.
Tell us about "Run Away with Me."
Yeah, we wrote this one at the height of COVID, especially when all travel was canceled, and we were sitting in a room, and we're just like, man, sure would be nice to bring our wives somewhere, wouldn't it? And we're like, why don't we just write a song about that? And it just felt like a time where people couldn't dream, had nothing to hope for. And there's something in the way that we're wired. If we don't have something to look forward to, we really do fall apart. It's tough. There's a verse in Proverbs, and it says, without vision, people perish. Without hope, without something to look at. And scientifically, the body actually dies. When people retire and they have nothing to do, statistically speaking, the body starts dying. Isn't that amazing? How if we don't have something to look forward to, we fall apart. So this song we were trying to give ourselves hope and give people hope, and just say, like, what would we do if we could right now? And we just had a lot of fun with it. And we painted a picture of all the places that we would go and all the places we'd take our wife. And we just had a blast writing it. And it's just a love song. And that turned into a music video. And I called up my friend John, who did another video with me. And I said, hey, I think I have an idea for a video, and we just have to find a private island. Would you go with me? And he said, yeah, why not? So we found this private island in the middle of Belize, and it was perfect. I saw the ad for it on Airbnb, but I didn't have enough money to do it. I was in between my records and my label. They didn't have a budget yet, so I was like, it was one of those step of faith things. So I reached out to the owner. I said, hey, I don't have much, but I love your island. Would you consider helping us do a music video there, maybe giving us a discount? And he responded and he said, did you write the song Up Again? And I said, yeah, I did. And he said, I want you to come to the island and film this music video for free.
Wow.
This sort of became the story, and we tell the story in the music video, which is out now. You can look at it. It explains the whole story. We wanted to take the opportunity to inspire people, because all of this happened in a time where travel felt impossible. And it really felt like God was at the heart of it, connecting two people from different parts of the world. And we were able to tell this story and inspire people to sometimes, when we feel at our darkest or lowest, or when we don't have vision for the future, sometimes that's just the best time to dream. And it's the time that God can break through impossible situations and do things you'd never imagined, which I lived through. For once in my own life, I lived in my own song, my own story. Words that were spoken in a time of darkness all of a sudden became words of life. And they literally materialized in front of us. And we were standing on this island just looking around like, wow.
I feel a little bit jealous.
Well, if this helps at all, it was two full days of work and 14 hours of travel on each side of it. We were exhausted. So it was hard work, but we did catch a little bit of sunshine. And if you feel jealous, just watch the video and live vicariously through it.
I think I will enjoy that. So just want to say thank you so very much, Dan Bremnes, for joining us today. And this is your track, Run Away With Me. God bless you, Dan. Bye-bye.
See ya.
You want to do just me and you. Tell me the truth. No rules, we could get lost down some street. Dance to the beat. Let's waste some time. 'Cause I'm taking you away inside my mind.
And that was Run Away With Me by the wonderful Dan Bremnes. And thank you so very much, Dan, for joining us for the Artist Interview podcast from Hope FM. And there are many other episodes from great artists with amazing stories and lovely music for you to enjoy. Just pop onto your favourite podcast platform and search up the Artist Interview. Thanks very much for joining me, Gordon T. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Talking to some of the best names in contemporary Christian music. This is the Hope FM Artist Interview.